What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some r/relationships. And if you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below. But I think today we're just going to jump straight in to the good stuff. So let's get involved, guys. And if you do have a moment of your time, could you please click that like button? It really helps out. Our first story comes from Throwaway Adopted Girl. And it does come with an update. And it's titled, My 19 female biological father's 45 male wife, 40 female, said she wants me to leave them alone. Okay, so this is going to be kind of long because of the amount of drama leading up to this is ridiculous. Usually I'll just summarize, but the context is important. I'm going to change names and specific locations because I don't want to get tracked down and found out and stuff. Backstory, it all started a few months before I was even conceived. My biological mother, let's call her Chloe, was engaged to a man who we will call Carl. So Chloe was working at Walmart while engaged to Carl and decided to cheat on him with her boss, who we'll call Harold. So Harold had no idea Chloe was engaged until they had been dating for a while. Things are going well between them until one day Harold catches Chloe on a date with his best friend. This leads to a big fight where Chloe hits Harold and he has to lock her out of the house to protect himself. She calls the police on him, and due to the crappy domestic dispute laws in their state, they both spend the night in jail. Somehow, Harold is blamed for the incident and is ordered to take 2 years of anger management and decides to never speak to Chloe again. A few weeks later, Harold gets a text from one of his friends telling him that Chloe is pregnant and that Harold is the father. He immediately calls bullshit because Chloe is not only engaged to another man who is probably the father, but was also being intimate with many other men. So he brushes it off and forgets about it. A couple of months pass and Harold gets a call from an adoption agency saying that they need to talk to him. Chloe has decided to give the baby, hey, that's me, up for adoption. And Harold needs to sign some papers since she put him down as a father. He agrees to sit down with someone from the agency, but only to talk to them about the claims. So he meets a representative and tells them that he doesn't think he's the father. The guy from the agency goes, oh great, just sign here then, and hands Harold the documents to surrender his rights as a father. Harold signs them and doesn't hear anything from them again. Meanwhile with Chloe, she has the baby with her fiancé in the room, which gives me infinite respect for him, and the baby is adopted 3 days later. Unfortunately, the baby, who is me, was born with a slew of genetic illnesses, and I end up in the hospital only 20 days later because my kidney was collapsing in on itself. To save time, let's just say that growing up, I spent a disgusting amount of time in the hospital. My health was in a perpetual downward spiral, and every time we found a solution to one problem, a new one would pop up and wreak havoc on my tiny body. It all came to a head one day when I was 13. When I was in so much pain that my doctors thought I was having a heart attack. I wasn't, but hadn't been diagnosed yet, so they had no clue. So after being told by my doctors in the hospital that I had a heart attack, my adopted dad, who we're called Marcus, freaked out and finally reached out to Harold for the first time. He asked for his medical records so they could better assess the situation and decide what to do. Here is where the problem started. The first incident. So while I was busy being cripplingly ill, Harold had forgotten all about me and started a new life with a woman he had met a month after my birth. Let's call her Heather because she reminds me of Heather Duke. They had 2 sons at the time, and Harold hadn't told Heather about anything about maybe having another kid. To clarify, I wasn't there for this part, so I'm only telling what I've been told happened. So Heather finds the email that my dad sent to Harold and absolutely loses her mind. She thinks he cheated on her or something and blocks my dad on Facebook and starts messaging Chloe on Facebook. Now this is where the story gets a little tricky. I've been told 2 different versions of this event, and honestly I'm not 100% sure which one is true, so I'll just tell both. Chloe's version. Heather started sending a mass amount of hate and harassment to Chloe, basically telling her to step off and get away from her man. Heather insisted that Harold wasn't the father and Chloe was lying. By this point in time, Chloe was already married and had 2 daughters that she kept, one who belonged to her old fiancé and one who belonged to her current husband, and also built a relationship with me. She read me some of the messages that Heather sent her during a weekend I was spending with her, and my half-sister almost 4 years later. She said, I quote, "Her grammar was atrocious, but I didn't think correcting it was the right way to go." Heather's version. Heather reached out to Chloe to talk to her about the situation and what she wanted them to do. Chloe snapped at her and said there was no way that my parents would put me through a paternity test because Chloe said that they decided not to pursue the test. After these communications, all contact was lost and my dad lost Harold's cell phone number. The whole interaction ended with no paternity test and no medical records. Recent events. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here's what happened in the last month. So my health has progressively gotten worse, and now I have to apply for disability if I want to pay for my ungodly amount of medications. The lawyer I hired said that having a full family medical history might be helpful, so I asked my super smart friend to track Harold down so I could contact him. Long story short, I got his number and I left him a voicemail that was basically just me begging him to help me and that I was sorry for intruding on his life and begging for him not to yell at me. He called back after like 20 minutes and to my extreme surprise, he was happy to hear from me. He said that not contacting me was one of the biggest regrets of his life. We cried together on the phone and I told him about the genetic disorders I have and how worried I was for his kids. He assured me that they were healthy and I cried because I was relieved. We talked throughout the week until eventually he had to fly home from his business trip and tell his wife what was going on. Needless to say, it did not go well. Heather was pissed and demanded that we limit contact until the results of the paternity test came in. Unfortunately for her, it came back positive and confirmed that I am his daughter. Here is where the story gets sticky again, because I have been told two different versions of what happened during this last week. Harold's version. Harold and Heather got into a big fight and she made him tell her sons what he did. Maybe it was meant to humiliate him, but if so it backfired because his sons were so excited to have a sister. One of them compared me to Shazam, I think. Harold left to go on another trip for work and he and Heather fought right before he left for the airport. He called me while he drove there and told me all of this and said that he didn't want to lose contact with me again. I was so happy he still wanted me around, but I was sad I screwed up his family. He told me it wasn't my fault, but I still felt bad. I got Heather's version of events much later at 11 PM when I was trying to eat my ramen. She messaged me on Facebook and claimed this is what really happened. Heather's version. Harold was unhappy about the test and said that I was too much too fast, but wouldn't tell me that because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. They told their sons they weren't happy about it either. She told me that Harold hardly has time for his kids and I was forcing your way in. Now, I am a very sensitive person and have a habit of breaking down over the smallest things because of other stuff that's happened in my past, but that's not relevant right now, which is why I'm very proud of how I handled this. I texted Harold and told him that his wife had contacted me, and within seconds he had called me and asked me to read what she had said. I read it to him and also read the apology I sent to her. He apologized on her behalf and asked if I was okay because I sounded like I was crying, which I was, but I didn't want him to feel bad, so I just told him I was fine and that I was just tired. I asked him what I should do and he told me to just be myself. So I apologized to her again and again while she snapped at me and eventually she stopped and I got to go to bed. Things were quiet after that and I tried not to message them because I didn't want to get yelled at again. This morning I got diagnosed with severe scoliosis and yesterday with epilepsy. And since those are usually genetic, I text Harold and told him he might want to get his sons tested for it. Apparently this was a bad idea because Heather proceeds to message me and tell me to stop texting them and that I was not helping their marriage. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help and asking her to please stop lashing out at me, but she just texts back with, "I'm not lashing out, we just want you to leave us alone." I haven't responded back because her message really hurt and I just shut down and fell asleep to cope. I apologized to Harold, but he hasn't replied to the text, which is making me think that maybe they really do want me to leave them alone. But I also know that Harold told me the exact opposite. My anxiety is having a field day and I have absolutely no idea what to do. My main goal in this situation is to preserve my relationship with Harold and try to get Heather to like me. What do I do? To me, the first thing that's popping into my head at the end of this one, and we do have an update for this as well, is that, the medical information is what's most important at the moment. That's going to help you get, your medication paid for and get you what you need right now. And I think that's what's priority at the moment. Secondly, I would say stop feeling bad, for having to approach them for that. This isn't your fault. You've been put into this position yourself. And I don't think you need to build a relationship with Heather. She's not really a part of it. And she sounds like she wouldn't want to be a part of your life anyway, which sounds pretty brutal, but I'm not sure if she ever would. And you want to build this relationship with Harold, if anyone, and maybe the kids as well. But through Harold, that might actually happen. And in some ways, I think maybe a blunter approach would be to just approach Harold and say, look, I'm getting conflicting messages here. What do you actually want out of me? Anyway, we're going to cover a couple of the comments first, then we're going to move on to the update and hopefully get a positive one. So Mablism says, you don't need Heather to like you. Heather is not part of this. Block Heather. Do not speak to her. Your relationship is with Harold and Harold alone. It is entirely possible that Harold said things were going really fast. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means he may be overwhelmed, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's being very honest when he says that he wants a relationship with you. Heather sounds like a piece of work. Don't even waste your time with her. Get Harold's medical history and genetic profile. You need this, then pursue relationship with him separately from the medical stuff. Not all is lost says good advice below. First, concentrate on getting all the medical information you need to sort out any disability allowance you're entitled to. Then secondly, build your relationship with Harold and only Harold. See him on a one-to-one basis in a neutral environment. Then thirdly, let Harold's kids take the lead as to whether they want to see you. Finally, do not let Heather into your life. No texts, no calls, no visits. Also avoid anyone else who causes you pain and anguish. Top priority, look after yourself. Deathfire D says, so I'm curious, you seem to be focused on Harold and his kids possibly having the same medical issues as you, but there's no mention of you telling your mum to test her kids. It's just as likely that you've inherited your medical issues from her side of the family. As for what to do about Harold, well, he knows about you being his daughter now. He knows how to contact you. He knows that you have medical issues. He will reach out when he's ready. I suspect that this is all overwhelming for him, and with his wife going nuts, he just needs time to soak it all in and figure it out. I'm sure that if his kids ever do start showing signs of serious medical issues, he will reach out to you again. OP did reply to that one saying, oh, Chloe already knows. She and I have a relationship, and I'm very close with my older sibling. I call them my sister in the original post because I'm still getting used to the gender fluid thingy, and sometimes I mess up. So I let them know before I even text Harold. They've already looked into making an appointment for both themselves and my younger sister. I keep them in the loop regarding all new developments with my health, and they do the same for me. For example, my sibling had skin cancer very young because her moles grew cancerous and stuff, and they let me know immediately. I now go to the dermatologist every 6 months to check up on myself. They knew before Harold did. And with that being said, we're going to move on to the update to see what that says. So, update. Hello, sorry this update has taken a while to come out, but I promise there is a good reason for it. 1. My girlfriend drove down to visit me for a week and I was preoccupied spending time with her. 2. I was really hoping that the news I have to share with you would change. So, long story short, I took the advice I was given and muted Heather's messages to me. The stuff she was saying to me has really gotten to me, and at this point I'm not quite sure if I'm the bad guy. I called Harold and talked to him about the situation, and told him that I don't think it's in my best interest to be talking to his wife. This is where things took a bit of a sad turn. Harold agreed with his wife and said it would be best if I just left them alone for a while. I was stunned for a few moments because this was the opposite of what he had told me less than 24 hours earlier. That said, even if he had said something else beforehand, I know that I have to respect his decision. I told him that I would stop all contact, and when he is ready to talk again, it will be on him to message me. That's where the call ended, and we haven't spoken since. It sucks. I'm kinda hurt. I know I have no right to be hurt about it, but I still am. I've come to the decision that it's not my job to make them like me. This was probably not going to end any other way. It's painful, but it's the world we live in. I'm sorry I don't have a happier ending to share, but I'd like to say thank you guys for the amount of support and loving messages I received on my first post. I don't think I could have endured this without you guys and the validation you provided me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to send such kind messages and helpful advice. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm sending virtual hugs. And unfortunately, not the happy update that we was hoping for. I'm never sure if it was going to be a totally happy update anyway, but I was hoping for a bit more than that. And I do wonder about the whole medical record. Is OP going to get them to help them get their medication? I am worried about that, I got to say. But anyway, what do you guys make of this story? And we'll cover another one next. And our next story comes from Easy Zookeeper Game 988. I, 32 female, snooped on my husband's 33 male phone and found out he is bi. And again, this story does come with an update. We have been married for 5 years. My husband has different message tones for all his closest friends. Over the last week, he's been texting a female friend. I think she got a text from her through the day, and it was way above normal that I noticed it. He has also been very protective of his phone. He always used to leave it unlocked, would lend it to me if I wanted to do a quick search, but he has been with his phone. He never locks his phone and always takes it with him wherever he goes. He had told me that at the start of their friendship, 12 years ago, he had feelings for her, but it was fleeting and they have a really strong friendship. I was feeling jealous and betrayed. I have been cheated on before and I'm still a bit insecure about this. 2 days ago, he left his phone unlocked. I opened his messenger and his last message was, "I'm good at hiding it. I should have just left the phone at the table and minded my own business." But that text confirmed all my fears and I couldn't stop myself from opening it to read. I regret it. He wanted to come out but was scared. He was scared of my reaction. He was scared that I would not find him attractive anymore and that we would have to get a divorce. He thought it was not worth coming out. I came to my senses and kept his phone back on the table. My head is spinning a little. What do I do now? Should I tell him that I know and that it's okay? I feel terrible for hiding things from him. I want to apologize to him for snooping on his phone. I also feel a bit sad that he was more comfortable trusting her than trusting me, which is not very mature on my part. Would it be better if I tell him? I want to do what would make him happy, but I can't just ask him that. The only thing that come into my head in this one, and it's only from previous stories we've read, it's never a great idea to force someone to come out like that. You know, you're basically forcing it, which I don't think would be the right idea to do, rather than just, letting come out at his own pace, which would be a much smoother experience. Is that the right word for it? Yeah, that's my only thought on that one. But Mother of Grendel says, it seems that most people are saying you should tell him, but I'm in the other camp. He needs to come out and share this information on his own timeline. Forcing him before he is ready can be really, really damaging. You can help him by having conversations or dropping hints that aren't specifically about him, that indicate you're okay with this development in your relationship, but let him broach the subject when he is ready. The only partially concerning thing here is that he felt he could confide in his friend before you. But that doesn't seem too worrisome to me. I would probably confide in a friend before telling my partner something like this if I knew there could be negative outcomes from this discussion. She is being his sounding board while he works it out, and it might hurt that he didn't come out to you. But he has a lot more to risk by discussing this with you. At some point, you guys will need to talk about it, and you will need to reassure and remind him that you're his wife and should be the person he talks to first. But considering the specific nature of this, it doesn't seem unreasonable that he would seek out an outside voice. Telling him you snooped forces the conversation to occur, which he might not be ready to have. If it were me, I'd be more angry about that than the fact you snooped in the first place. Just something to consider. Best of luck. Painted Swindle says, as a bi person, I want to echo the other commenters, saying to wait and let him come out to you. See if you can find a way to show your acceptance of LGBTQ people at random times, like during a TV show with queer characters. Try not to be too obvious about it. When I was deathly afraid to come out to family or friends, it helped me immensely to hear them randomly show their acceptance of LGBTQ people. Charming Ad says, as a bi woman who's in a relationship with a bi man, I advise that you wait. If you tell him you know, then you're forcing him to come out and that's fudged up. If you love him, you'll wait for him to come out to you. Please don't take it personally. Everyone's coming out is for different reasons. He probably needed someone to give him an extra "you'll be okay, you got this" encouragement before making the plunge. I'm sure you've discussed things with friends about what to say or do, and he has done the same. But please, I am begging you, let him come to you. And I think from there, we'll move on to the update to see what that says. So, update. I did not expect so many responses and I was a bit confused on what to do, but I guess most people in the community was telling me to give him space to process it himself and come out on his own terms. I took the advice to be generally supportive of the LGBTQA community without being obvious about it. I also spent some time reading about bisexuality. I did post a story on June 1st, but the best thing that happened was that his friend came out as by herself. We follow each other on Instagram and she made a post about it. I made a comment congratulating her and wishing her well. She did text me about dinner, and while we were chatting, she thanked me for my support, and this wonderful woman gave me another opportunity to express my support and do it in a more personal way than a comment. He came out to me about a week ago. He was very nervous and still scared, and all I wanted to do was tell me that I knew, but from what I read, letting people do it on their own terms was really important. He told me nothing would change. He just wanted me to know, and he didn't want to hide a part of himself. It was okay. I told him nothing had to change. He was the perfect man for me, and I loved him no matter what. He did ask me later if I knew and I came clean. I told him I saw. I apologized for it and cried a lot. He was upset but understanding. He even apologized for suddenly changing his behavior, which is bullshit, as I should have dealt with it a lot more maturely. It just hit the right spot of insecurity for me. Things are fine, he is happier, and we're back to our old routines. And what a wonderful way to end this video. What do you guys make of these stories, these two stories today? The first one was a lengthy story as usual. Whenever we go to relationship stories, they're always a bit longer, aren't they? But let me know your thoughts on today's stories. Do you have any of your own experiences that may be similar to them? Let us know in the comments below. Always love to hear them. If you do have a moment of your time and you did enjoy today's stories, please click that like button. Massively helps out. You can share it on other social medias as well. All very good stuff and helps me out. Thank you so much for your love, support, and time towards the channel. Your time is super important. Spending it with me is absolutely incredible, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love. I've been thinking that I can't let you go. Hey, can you hear